Hi everybody, my name is Bertha, and I thought I'd make this video to share my experience in applying for and getting the Rhodes Scholarship for Southern African scholars. So, first disclaimer, this is not in any capacity as a selector or on behalf of the Rhodes Trust. I'm simply here to share my own personal experiences, okay? So, what is the Rhodes Scholarship? Very quickly, you can do the research, but briefly, it's the oldest and most competitive postgraduate scholarship in the world. Um, it's to go fully funded studies at Oxford University, and it is very competitive. So, if you're thinking of applying, I would highly encourage you to put your best foot forward, to think about it strongly, and to think about it critically, and really sort of do your best. So for the process, so as you're starting to apply for the scholarship, some people start to think about it years in advance. Some people are preparing to be a Rhodes Scholar their whole lives. If you're like me, that's not really the case. I mean, I wasn't gunning for it particularly, or I didn't, if you're like most people, you don't think that you can get a scholarship that has 0.7% acceptance rate. So I went for it. I applied. And you submit. You fill in everything, your name, your documents, all of that stuff. One of the biggest and the most daunting parts, however, of the process is what we refer to as the personal statement. So I think the prompt might have changed a little bit, but for us, you had to write about yourself, you had to write about your community, and you had to write about a problem that you wanted to solve from your corner in the world, right? So it's about 750 words. You don't have much time. What I would urge you to remember, in my experience, is it's not an autobiography, right? I'm not busy talking about, when I grew up, I was 5 years old, and this is how things started. You are trying to communicate what parts of your story, what parts of your character relate to the Rhodes Scholar quality. So there's 4 Rhodes Scholar qualities, and they'll be up on screen somewhere. But you have to reflect sort of what parts of your story reflect those parts of the Rhodes Scholar. What is the Rhodes Scholar profile, right? So that's really the point. And you really have to think back, what is the single message that you're trying to send about yourself? What are you trying to say about yourself? When a selector walks away from having read your essay, what do you want them to know for sure about you, right? In my case, I wanted to communicate that I'm the type of person who absolutely uses my talents to the full. And I'm reading my essay and I'm asking family members, after you've read this essay, what is the single perception that you walk away from thinking of me? What is the single perception? So reflect, ask people what they think, ask your family, ask your friends. I asked my little sister, and the first draft, she was like, this sucks. It sounds like you're applying to undergrad. This is not at the caliber of the kind of scholarship that you're applying to. So be open to that criticism. Don't be afraid to go back and refine it. Go through with a fine-tooth comb from people you trust, people whose opinions you trust. So that worked for me. The second thing with the essay is be honest, right? Write the essay that you want to write and not the essay that you think selectors want to read. So what do you want to say about yourself? Be honest, be creative. There's no specific template. That worked for me. To be honest, I got to the end of my essay at some point and I was like, does this even make sense? But it was the essay that I wanted to write. And I was lucky and that worked out for me. So those would be some of my tips. Get that feedback, be creative, be honest, tell the story you want to tell, and it's not an autobiography. It must reflect the qualities of a Rhodes Scholar, and you can find those if you research them. So apart from the personal statement, you also have to write a shorter essay, and that essay is about what you would study if you got into Oxford. So my program was the Masters of Science in Sustainability, Enterprise and the Environment, and the idea here really is, for me at least, it was important to make sure that the narrative that I shared in my personal statement reflected what I wanted to pursue at school, right? So it needs to be clear, it needs to be consistent, what kind of problem you're trying to address in the world. What kind of challenge is your story speaking to? What inspires you? What is the nature of challenges that you'd want to solve? And so the academic piece, that academic essay, the shorter one, yes, it's academic, but it also needs to be personal in the sense that, you're an individual at the end of the day. So for me, I really tried to share why this problem matters to me, why I care about natural resource governance, and I think that worked out. So after all that is said and done, if your application does go through to the next stage, in my case, then you go to an interview. So I was going to school in California at the time. but the interviews were to select a BLMNS Rhodes Scholar. So that's a Rhodes Scholar from the cohort of Botswana, Lesotho, Malawi, Namibia, and Eswatini. The S, I think, is because it was Swaziland at the time. And so I had to travel from California to Johannesburg just for the interview, and I had to do that in a span of 4 days. That was a bit much, and I was a bit jet lagged during the interview. But when I got there, I remember feeling very anxious, because you have to remember that all the other scholars who have made it to that stage of the application round are just as competent, they're just as brilliant, and at that point I thought, this could even be a game of luck, right? So you should be very proud of yourself if you make it to even the interview stage. So some of my tips and tricks that really helped me were: one, again, being myself; two, trusting that every single experience I had up until that point prepared me for the interview; thirdly, right, so if you're like me, you're currently, like, before the interview, I was fretting the whole time. I was like, okay, but what if they ask me this? What if they ask me that? What if they ask me why I got a C in macroeconomics, right? So there were all of these questions that I had. And so when you go into the interview, when I went into the interview, I was so prepared. There were I wanted to show that I was prepared, right? So sometimes you get bogged down because you asked a question and you're so intent on showing that you're prepared that you don't answer the question that was asked, but you answer the question that you wish was asked. So that's a tip also. Listen to the question, try to understand what is the first principle that they're trying to gauge. What is the core sentiment that they're trying to understand from you as they're asking you this question, and be responsive to what they're asking. Don't come in with your preconceived preparation and then sort of try to impose that on the selectors. Be honest, be organic, be responsive, let it be a natural conversation. But the only way it can be natural is if you trust that you've prepared, if you trust that your whole life, all your experiences have led you to that very moment. And then some small basic things are just what you learn about basic interview etiquette, right? Dress appropriately. You don't want to be in the interview thinking, oh my gosh, can they see my chest? Or like, you don't want to be in there thinking, is my coat clean? You want to be there and you want to be fully present. You want to be in the moment. I wore a simple black dress with black heels and a black blazer. I didn't want any distracting colors. I didn't want reds or pinks. Now, if someone is thinking, yeah, pink is not your color, you don't want any of that. You just want to be yourself. So that's the one. Set up straight, right? Be confident, again, have a presence, trust that you deserve to be in that room. Make eye contact, right? Speak to people. If someone is asking you a question, don't look down, don't be twiddling your thumbs. Have a conversation, demonstrate that you can hold your own. And again, go in trusting that your whole life was preparation, and be yourself. So those are really the biggest parts. Those are the biggest parts for me of the application process, with the essay, the statement, and the interview. And those are the tips that worked for me. And anything beyond that, you should trust yourself to figure it out. So all in all, those were obviously the reason I'm talking about the Rhodes Scholarship is because that's the one that I applied to and that's the one I have experience with. But these are meant to be just generally for scholarships. If you're applying for a scholarship that is rigorous, doesn't have to be the Rhodes. Trust yourself. All of these are applicable to any application process, really. And I hope they've been helpful to you, because they've definitely helped me out. And then just again, a last time disclaimer to say that this is not on behalf of the Rhodes Trust. This is my personal capacity. This is me sharing my experience and sharing what has worked for me. And I hope it's going to work for you too. Until next time.